Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter and I will be your host for today's show. Today we're going to have you take your Audit Committee's 2020 health check test. And joining me to help us get through that test is Catie Hall, who's the director with PwC's Governance Insight Center. Welcome, Catie.
Thanks for having me, TK.
So, I thought that this health test was fascinating, and I hope that everybody, obviously we can't give that test, we don't have enough time to do that.
Right.
But we're going to talk about it a little bit, and it's something that I hope people will take advantage of because I think it's great. So PwC released this Audit Committee health check. So share with the audience sort of what was the motivation to produce this report and hopefully what you're open to aim it to do.
Sure. So the idea for this health check really grew out of the conversations that we were having with audit committee members. We're fresh off our annual corporate director event, and a common theme of discussion there was the growing expectations and workload of the audit committee member. And we really believe that audit committees should step back once a year and think about what's gone well and maybe be honest about areas that haven't gone so well, and a health check really factors into that. And we know that everyone is typically doing an assessment process of some sort, and so the way we've structured the overall checklist is that we've included those required type activities you would expect to see in an assessment, and we've layered in insights to really help those audit committees take their game to the next level, if you will. And so we're hoping that this document is really a conversation primer for audit committees.
Well, I think anytime you have these kind of tests or checkups or whatever it is, it's a great exercise. And obviously you guys, speak to audit committees every day, so you have a great feel of what kind of test is appropriate. So I think viewers will find it really helpful. But when you were having these discussions, to develop this, what kind of things sort of stand out that you think are specific areas that people can look for as far as their activities go?
Right. And we have several insights layered in there, and we could probably talk for several shows about them, but I'll highlight three here today. So the first one is around the use of non-GAAP metrics and other non-financial reporting, like environmental, social, and governance matters, sustainability, some of the hot topics we've seen recently, and the audit committee's understanding of the processes and controls around this information. So non-GAAP, I think that's been one that's been out there for a few years. We know the SEC has been focused on it, but it seems like from our discussions that directors are getting their arms around asking the right questions of management about placement and use of those non-GAAP metrics. Where the discussion is changing, we think, is around this ESG information or sustainability information. So if we just think about some of the events that have gone on in the past 6 months, you've got the BRT coming out with their updated statement on the purpose of a corporation and the idea of stakeholder reporting. You have the last month or so, the large asset managers putting out their annual communications that were sort of chock full of sustainability and climate risk. And so all of these factors are causing companies to step back and think, which of these risks are material to our business, and how do we identify which metrics are important to measure it, and then where do we disclose that information? Is it on our website? Is it our, in some cases, filings, a sustainability report? And where the audit committee can come in here is, how do we get comfort that these numbers are accurate and that they're right? And so what our checklist highlights is that the audit committee may be asking questions like, what are the internal controls around this information? How are we comfortable that the source data there's been some sort of rigor applied, to that as we've looked at it? So I think that's going to be one to watch, and we see audit committees playing a role there. The second one is around internal audit and the audit committee's leverage of internal audit. So we keep talking about how the audit committee has so much on their plate, and they've got this growing list of emerging risks and even just sort of the other day-to-day risks that they're overseeing. So I have to sort of step back and think, I wonder how many audit committees are considering how they can leverage internal audit and helping them carry out that oversight. And so I'll give you a couple of examples that might bring that to life. So one is the discussion of corporate culture. We know that this is something that has been a hot topic in the governance world for a few years now, and it's something that can be a challenge for directors for many reasons, but one of them is, it's hard to get your arms around the culture of a company below sort of the senior levels of management. And internal audit, while we may think of them as traditionally operational compliance type audits, SOX work, internal controls over financial reporting, they're out in the business day to day doing their field work. They're interacting with all levels of employee from very junior to very senior through their reporting process. So I wonder how many audit committees are asking in private session with the chief auditor, how do you see the corporate culture? What do you see when you and your team are out in the field? And thinking of using them as a resource. The other example that I would use around this is just the discussion we were just having around non-financial information and the controls and rigor around that source data. Has the audit committee considered how they could use internal audit perhaps to look at that information and to look at the processes that are generating that non-financial information? And then the last one is, another top conversation in the governance world, cybersecurity oversight. So what we're seeing is some audit committees or boards are considering how they can enhance their proxy disclosure and provide perhaps more transparency into their oversight of cyber. So the discussion with this one, we know that this may be a full board issue, cyber oversight. Oftentimes when it is delegated to a committee, if you don't have a risk or cyber or a tech committee, is going to the audit committee many times. So, and just given how material the risk is and the significant legal and operational and compliance impacts, investors are interested and they're curious and they want to know what the board is doing and what the audit committee is doing as part of their oversight. We know that the SEC is keenly focused on those disclosures as well. So in our checklist, we talk about this, and the audit committee could consider whether or not they want to add more information, such as do they meet with the Chief Information Security Officer in private session? Do they, what types of reporting do they receive? How often are they receiving that information? And even if they're engaging or bringing in a third party to provide insights to the committee on a complex technical topic. So that was very quickly 3 sort of these insights or nuggets that we have in the health check to just demonstrate some of these ideas where audit committees may not be fully realizing all of the opportunities they have.
Yeah. So that was a touch point I really didn't think of as far as culture goes, is talking to the inside auditors and sort of getting the feel that they have. I'll offer you one thing that I don't know whether it's part of 2020, but it could be part of 2021, and that's the board culture, which is different than the company culture. Is there the belief that there's freedom to ask questions or to challenge things? If you look at the debacles that we've had, everything from BP through Equifax to Volkswagen to now to Boeing, all of them the concern was the board's culture and their ability to ask the right questions or press for change. So maybe that's one that you could add for the future.
Yeah, we'll put that in version 2.0 for sure.
So with all these insights and with all your conversations in creating this, if you had to sort of say, here is my final words of advice to any audit committee who wants to help drive improvement on their committee, what would you offer?
Sure, I think my final words of wisdom would be, look, we know that a lot of the activities we have on the checklist, a lot of boards are already doing, a lot of audit committees are already doing. But our goal here is for you to look through it, find the 2 or 3 insights or nuggets that you're not doing, and focus on those with a continuous improvement mindset. Because, as the saying goes, it's a journey.
Yeah. So there's plenty in the Governance Insight Center's website. Is that where we find and people can get a copy of the health check?
Absolutely, it's there front and center.
Yeah. Okay, well, Catie, thank you for coming in and joining us and giving us the test.
All right.
And I appreciate you taking the time.
All right, thank you.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic to help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.